What's up, Campus Life fans? It's Lane here in the Campus Life studios today to bring you another edition of the Guns Blazin podcast, episode 30. Hard to believe we're here at episode 30, but as always, I am one of your hosts here today, and alongside me for today's episode is Mr. Miller Quinn. Miller, how are you doing on this beautiful Friday here in Lubbock,
I'm
Texas?
doing great. We just had the Hall of Fame game last night, so football season it's officially back. And who would have thought that was going to be the outcome of the game? Like they put on a clinic last night. Panthers end up walking off Haynes King, little Russian touchdown. Carson Beck looked good out there. So football season's back. We're here. We made it.
Absolutely. This is the best time of the year. This is what you basically survive throughout the off season for. Thank God we had the World Cup this summer
Yes,
because
made it go a lot quicker.
both of us being Rangers fans,
That's not
it's
going good.
yeah, it hasn't been the best summer. Even though technically they're still in the playoffs right now somehow. But besides that, though, football it's back. Not this past week. This week, been at Texas Tech's fall camp practices. We're gonna have all those types of discussions here in today's episode. But first, we just want to thank every single one of y'all for tuning in every week, and we make sure you please like our videos, share, subscribe, or follow wherever you're seeing our content on our social media platforms, whether that's at the Guns Blazin podcast or at Campus Life TTU, as well as thanking all of our sponsors for the Guns Blazin podcast. First, with Roof Masters of Lubbock, fans with storm season and this past storm season here in the Lubbock area, all the rain that we have received. If you have any type of roof damages, please make sure to check out Roof Masters of Lubbock if you have any type of roof damages. And we also want to thank our sponsors with JSI Industries, Lone Star Golf Cars, and the Exceptional Community Hospital here in Lubbock. Miller, Texas Tech practice, it's been starting this week. I've been to all three of the practices the past 3 days since Wednesday. It's been great to just go watch some football, especially the Red Raiders, and I have quite a bit of notes from the past 3 days just being there. The viewing periods aren't the longest. The first day we were there for probably about 30 minutes, but past 2 days probably only about 20. Not you can't gather too much, but you can gather some stuff. I will say probably the biggest storyline, which in my opinion this is the biggest storyline for this whole entire team. It is Will Hammond, obviously returning from that ACL injury. He is wearing a knee brace. That was expected, though. Coach McGuire said he's going to force him to throughout this fall practice. It still remains to be seen as far as game-wise if he's going to wear one or not. But through 3 practices, the first day he looked good. I will say, there were a few throws that kind of looked like arm throws. Maybe just fully wasn't having his legs completely under him with the pads on, your helmet on, everything like that. The past 2 days, though, Will has looked lights out. There's only been a few times in the periods that we have seen that he has missed a throw, and it could be like 1 or 2 throws. That's how good he has been to all of his weapons. It's great to see him out there, and he's the guy now, Miller.
Yep.
This is his
He
offense.
is.
This is his team being the quarterback, and it's just great to see him out there fully healthy and looking honestly phenomenal in practice so far.
No, that's great to hear from you. With all the Sorsby drama this offseason, I've seen a lot of people like online talking. They're like, Tech doesn't have a quarterback. Like, Tech doesn't have their quarterback situation find out. Like, people forget that Will Hammond was a 4-star recruit coming into college. He had offers from Houston, Tennessee, I think Oklahoma State maybe. So he really is a solid quarterback. He just hasn't really had the chance to show it yet because, he was backed up to Baron Morton. But you and I both remember that Utah game when he stepped up, looked phenomenal. And, I really think this is his year to break out and really, make a name for himself in the Big 12.
Yeah, and Will, with it being his team, now there are maybe a few question marks about the guys behind him. God forbid if, he had an injury for a week or two whenever we're actually playing, a good opponent in the Big 12. I will say Kirk Francis, he has been handling the second team reps. He's looked pretty good, in the periods I've seen. I will say Chubb Jones has flashed, his arm talent at times as well. I think, it's pretty fair to say he probably has the strongest arm in the whole entire room. It's just, more of him. He's a younger guy, kind of just finding himself as a player. But the arm talent absolutely is there, no doubt. And you saw it, actually in real game reps last year against West Virginia. threw those 2 touchdowns to Micah Hudson. But this quarterback room, and possibly, we'll have to see. There could be some 5-for-5, news that could possibly happen to Texas Tech football with this quarterback room. That remains to be seen. Not going to name any names, but there could be something. So maybe have to stay tuned for that. But as we move on to the running backs, I think, we can kind of quickly go over this. Quentin Joyner, though, is back out there at practice. Great to see him. He's wearing a knee sleeve on that repaired knee, but this running back room is phenomenal. Jacoby Williams, Cam Dickey, Quentin Joyner, ace route into the freshman behind him. And also, the first day at practice, Jacoby had one of the catches of the day during the viewing period. They're just so versatile, and this is why, in our opinion, this is the best running back room in the country, Miller.
No, I agree with you on that. You have that 1-2 punch with Joyner and Dickey being kind of like your lead backs, but then, like you said, Jacoby Williams kind of being like that scat back role. He is a good receiver. He, I think, had over 300 receiving yards for us last season. You're also probably going to see him in the return game a lot, so I agree with you. It is probably the best running back room in the country.
Yeah, and today we finally got to see kind of some different drills from the first 2 days. You did get to see the running backs do some pass protection drills, and that's such an important part of that position. And Cam Dickey already is more of a bigger running back. Mm-hmm. You can definitely tell he's the strength and conditioning program at Texas Tech is top notch. Obviously, our facilities are amazing. You can definitely tell Cam has added, a little bit more muscle to his frame. He looked good in pass protection today. All the running backs did. Quentin Joyner, too. I mean, you look at his body. He is every single bit of 220 pounds. Legs look massive. Mm-hmm. We talked about it. He kind of has like Saquon quads,
yeah.
So the running back room continues to look great. The wide receivers and tight ends, Micah Hudson, once again, just like in the spring, has looked phenomenal. He's a completely different player physically.
Mm-hmm.
He's completely transformed his body. He has a collegiate body. Now him, Kenny Johnson, and Coy Eakin look great as the starters, but I think the real story, and you heard Coach McGuire talk about it yesterday, is the depth behind them. Dante Lee Jr., Jalen Jones, Malcolm Simmons, and Chase Campbell. This wide receiver room, they can go 6 or 7 guys deep this year in rotation, and I think that this wide receiver room actually at the end of this season could end up being the best in the whole entire Big 12, Miller.
I agree. I know we've talked about them plenty, about how deep they are, the rotations that we're going to be able to have with this group. That we really don't have that, like, star receiver, that Cam Coleman type, that Jeremiah Smith type, but we do have guys like Micah Hudson that I've predicted to kind of step up and take that, next step to be that star receiver. And then you have a fifth-year senior in Coy Eakin, he's been here. He knows what it takes to get the job done. He was the offensive Big 12 player in the Big 12 championship game last season. Really just this wide receiver group can become the best in the Big 12, and a bunch of talent for Will Hammond to use. A lot of mouths to feed on this offense, but honestly, it's a good problem to have.
Yeah, maybe his best weapon on this whole entire offense, of course, is Terrence Carter Jr., the best tight end in all of college football, returns to the Red Raiders. It was kind of funny. Yesterday, he had been doing a block and release drill with tight ends coach Josh Cochran, and he had actually accidentally thrown him to the ground, and he ended up catching a pass from Will, and he told Coach Cochran to get your butt up.
Yeah.
He said another word, but everyone was laughing and stuff, and it just kind of speaks. Terrence is kind of a character, out there, and he's such a great leader on this offense also, but he is an amazing player. He is one of the best players in college football, and you go watch him at practice, you just throw it in his area code, and this guy's coming down with the football. Just another reason why this offense, I think, is going to be so much more improved, and just another weapon at Will Hammond's disposal, Miller.
Yeah, he is really going to be Hammond's best friend, especially the first few weeks of the season, trying to get Hammond back into the groove of things. We always talk about tight ends being that security blanket, and you think about any of the great quarterbacks, Tom Brady, he had Gronk. I mean, Mahomes right now had Kelsey, so it is like that kind of like really, 1-2 connection that they have, and for him to be one of the best, I mean, you can make a case for him being the best tight end in the country. He'll really help this offense get going and really help Hammond make his way into the fold this season.
Yeah, and they're going to be huge also in the run blocking department. Him and Jet Carpenter, great tight end room. That's not even talking about guys like Moose Ludwig as well. The offensive line, I think this offensive line, once again, we keep talking about the offense improving. This offensive line is going to be much improved this season as well. Hunter Zambrano returns back from his injury last season, going to be your left guard, and then Jordan Church at right guard. But Jacob Ponton, you can really tell, has completely transformed his body at that right tackle position. Coach McGuire and he himself has said he added about 15 to 20 pounds of muscle this year. Both of your left tackle and your starting right tackle, both 6'8". Howard Sampson sits at 330 pounds, and Jacob Ponton is sitting at 315 pounds. That's a lot of weight.
That's a lot of human right there. Those are some big guys we have on the line, and we talked about it, especially Wednesday at our live show, about how we probably have like the best front five in college football, the best offensive line. Not college football, sorry, the Big 12.
Right.
But I mean, you really upgraded on size and everything, and these could kind of be like the behind the scenes, what kind of generates that offense is your five.
Yeah, because, they're so key. Obviously, pass protection, that's kind of what everyone always thinks of first about an offense line. But, obviously, if you really, pay attention and study football, it's the run blocking that's probably the most important, because without a run game, that takes out half of the offense.
Yep.
And for Will, the run game is going to be his best friend early on in this season as he, gets his body completely back to 100% from his injury. They're going to lean on this running game all year, and I think when you add in a right guard like Jordan Church, one of the best run blockers in the country last season, with Hunter Zambrano obviously coming back from his injury, Sheridan Wilson at center, one of the best centers in the whole entire country. You'd mentioned college football. I think, honestly, this offensive line can end up being a top 5 group if everyone stays healthy, if everyone makes the jump. That's projected to happen with the returning piece of Zambrano and the addition of Jordan Church. You also have guys behind them too. Our 2 deep could probably be one of the better to mid-tier offensive lines in the Big 12 as well. Felix Ojo on that left-hand side, you can definitely tell he's added a ton of weight this offseason. Cash Cleveland as well, very versatile guy. Cash could start if he really wanted to. Also, just a ton of depth. This offensive line, I think, is going to be much
at Exceptional Community Hospital.
We're committed. As we head to the defense, though, at the edge group, Trey White and Adam Trick, I mean, they're amazing. Through these 3 practices, they're just the way they carry themselves. You can tell they're just so professional. Everything's so attention to detail. They already look like NFL players, honestly. I will say, though, in this edge room, something that does worry me a little bit if we're one of those guys, if they got hurt, the depth in this room. I know Jamon Mathis, he's going to be a good player as well, but kind of after him, where does this edge room turn to? Charles Anderson, watched him today. Huge guy. I mean, just as far as physically, he's massive.
Yeah.
He looks like an NFL body out there. But never has really gotten true reps in a game. And you also do add 5-star LaDainian Guyton as well. But this is a kid. I mean, he's 17 years old. Should be a senior in high school right now. Very raw. Still, obviously, you can see the physical and athletic traits there are 100% there. But that is something I think you could, keep an eye on throughout this season. Texas Tech was very fortunate, I would say, with injuries last year. Besides at quarterback, Romello and David didn't get hurt. Really, the only injury on your defense was Skylar Gill-Howard.
Yep.
So you, I think, need another year of that. And after that first 3, and I'm not saying obviously there's not guys there that are going to contribute, but if you want to have the best defense in the country again, I think it's pretty important that these guys don't get hurt, Miller.
Yeah, I agree with you. Our starting 4, we also got Iragba or however you pronounce his last name.
Yeah.
You know, AJ Holmes returns, and then you have, like you said, Trick at the edge, and then Trey White. Like that's a solid front four for your defensive line. You know, really to help bolster the defense, and it also helps with the linebacking group that you have behind them. You know, Romaine and Ben Roberts. You know, to kind of like relieve some pressure. But I agree with you. Like outside of those four, you know, you don't really have that much depth. So hopefully we do have another lucky, healthy season. And I think once again, this could be one of the best defenses in the country.
Yeah, you know, I think the edge room is really where you look that could be considered maybe a little thin. At the defensive tackle room, though, I think you do have quite a bit of depth there. You know, AJ and Mateen, that could be the best tackle duo in the whole entire country. I think, you know, Julian Laventure and Bryce Butler are going to be huge players for you this year. Jaden Cofield comes back from his Achilles injury. He'll play. JoJo Johnson, you know, another portal guy. The defensive tackle room, I think they're going to be very good this year. They're very deep. It's just kind of what we just said, though. I think on the outside of the edge room, it's a little, I think a little thin behind your top three guys. Obviously, if there's no injuries, then there's nothing to talk about. But just something to keep an eye on. You know, you can't always, you know, be always positive, I guess, you know, so to speak.
Have that perfect season.
Have that perfect season. You know, injuries happen. It's football. It's, you know,
it's a physical sport.
It's part of it. But behind them at the linebacker position, you know, with Ben Roberts and Austin Romaine, these guys, they're continued as advertised, one of the best duos in the country as well. Be interesting to see how Austin, you know, replaces Jacob Rodriguez in that Mike backer spot. John Curry, he hasn't been working with the linebackers in individual drills. He's still, you know, with the safeties at that star position, but he can come down and play linebacker whenever he wants. He's that Swiss Army knife we always talk about. In the secondary, though, I think, you know, this is probably the most interesting story maybe of camp so far. Yesterday, Coach McGuire had said that, you know, the safety position isn't solidified next to B.J. Jordan and that, you know, B.J. is still rotating at both positions. And apparently, you know, Oliver Miles has really had a good start to his camp. And I noticed that yesterday in individual drills. And this isn't to say that, you know, Peyton Morgan and Malik Escara aren't as well. I know that they're having great camps too. But seeing Oliver Miles yesterday, he was actually pretty impressive. And Coach McGuire said he had a great first day of practice and a great day yesterday. I'm interested to know if he had a great day today as well. You know, there wasn't immediate availability afterwards. So, you know, I think this safety room maybe could actually end up being a little deeper than we maybe originally thought.
Okay, good.
You know, with BJ, Peyton, I would still project Peyton to be that starter next to him, obviously. But, you know, Oliver and Malik really have sounded like they're coming on as players, and that's not even talking about Jordan Rogers, the D2 All-American, who was added to this room too. So we'll have to see how that goes, but it sounds like this safety room might be a little bit deeper than we thought.
Okay, that's great to hear. You know, that's the group, you know, we kind of had the most questions about, you know, going into fall camp and going into the start of the season is how our safety is going to perform. You know, we've talked about it, how they're an unproven group. I think the talent's there. They're just unproven. So it's good to hear that we're having good camps from the boys. But, yeah, I'm excited to see how they really go out there and perform.
Yeah, and then today got to see our all Big 12 kicker, Stone Harrington, out there from about 37 yards. He was 3 for 3 today, if you were curious during that drill that we saw. It was kind of funny, though. Kenny Perry, I don't know exactly who it was, but Jacob Hand and Ian Hershey did both miss 2 kicks, and he started ripping into them pretty bad. And, hey, they adjusted, and there was not another kick that was missed during that period. So
love to hear it. There's a reason Kenny Perry's like one of the most sought after special teams.
So that was pretty funny to see today. Besides, you know, that and the special teams, you know, we talked about Will Carroll, you know, coming in more than likely going to be your starting punter. Kenny Perry's talked very highly of him. So that's kind of all the notes that we have so far from the first 3 days of practice. You know, once again, you know, the media viewing periods aren't too long, but on paper and the way we have discussed this team, I think it's fair to say, if you even comparing to last year's team, this is the deepest team that Joey McGuire has ever had at Texas Tech, Miller.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's crazy to think about because last season was the best season in Tech's history,
Right.
and the fact that we're getting better this season, deeper. We have more of these star players returning. It'll be fun to see, and we have an easier schedule than last season. So I know you and I both predicted it. Them going 13-0 and winning the Big 12 and getting that bye. I think that last season really set the standard for what this team and program can be.
100%. And this will kind of move us, talking about this season into our Lone Star Golf Cars Drive of the Game. Fans, our new partners with LoneStarGolfCars.com. If you are interested in any type of golf cart needs, please make sure to go check out LoneStarGolfCars.com or their store here in Lubbock at 8507 Urbana Avenue. Once again, please go make sure to check out Lone Star Golf Cars if you have any type of golf cart needs. Wanted to kind of do a fun segment for our Drive of the Game. If you are going to go get a golf cart, you got to buy it, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I figured we could do a buy or sell segment for Texas Tech. Got 7 or 8 of them here, and we are going to go back and forth. First off, this could be if this happens, this team could win the national championship if this ended up happening. Buy or sell if Will Hammond is a first team All Big 12 quarterback, Miller.
First team.
Yeah.
I mean, he has the weapons. That we have a really good tight end group, running back group. The wide receiver room is deep. First team, I mean, I'm trying to also think about, other guys.
The other guys, right.
Yeah, you got Noah Fafita, who's been there kind of proven. I think, Avery Johnson returns. He could have a sneaky good year at Kansas State. And then you got Drew Mestamaker at OSU. I'm going to sell.
Okay.
No hate, but I think he definitely has the potential to be, the first team. I think he could find his way onto the second team or an honorable mention. But just looking at all the other guys in the conference, I'm going to sell. As much as it hurts me, I'm going to sell.
Okay, I'm going to buy.
Okay.
But obviously, I think this ties into team success too, because we are projecting them to go 12-0, 13-0, with him being the quarterback, because I think he is going to have a better season than Barron did last year. I think significantly better, actually.
Fair.
I think that tied with the team success puts him actually in that first team range where you could see him win that first team All Big 12, quarterback slot or whatever. Obviously, Drew Mestamaker is going to be in the competition for that. I think Noah Fafita, Bear Bachmeier for BYU.
Yep,
I think Bear probably going into the season, or Drew would be the favorite for that. But tied in with team success, I think that Will has honestly a great shot to end up being on that first team All Big 12 list. But if he ends up having even better year than we expect, if he starts landing on lower tier All American list or something like that, that's when this team's ceiling obviously is raised dramatically, Miller.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully he wins that, and hopefully he does have that season that we're, kind of expecting from him to take that next step to be better than Morton was. And if that happens, I mean, who said? Why not us?
Yeah,
why not us?
Buy or sell. Texas Tech has 2 1,000-yard rushers.
I'm gonna buy.
Okay.
Because I almost mentioned that earlier when we were talking about the running back room. Obviously, I think our schedule kind of favors that because we have a pretty easier schedule, and I think there's going to get to a point in some of the games where the game's already sealed up by halftime, and you're not going to have to really throw the ball as much. You can run it. I think we do have it. I think so. I'm buying in on that one.
Okay. I think on this one, because there are 3 mouths to feed, I think you're definitely going to have one with Cam Dickey. I think the other 2 don't quite reach that 1,000-yard mark, though. I think they both are close. But 2 1,000-yard rushers is a lot.
That'd be a lot. I know. I was thinking about that, especially last season. Notre Dame's with Jadarian Price and Jeremiah Love.
Which, if there's a running back room that can do it, it's this one.
It's this one.
But with 3 mouths to feed instead of 2, I'm gonna say sell.
Say sell.
But there is Cam Dickey is gonna be a 1,000-yard rusher, but I think I mean, heck, what if you ended up having close to
The
three or
yeah.
something? You know?
I know when you
Yeah.
mentioned the running back room earlier, I was thinking about it, about making that comment. I was like, man, Cam, he'll break the 1,000,
Yeah.
and then Joyner, I was like, thinking about maybe 800, 900 yard
Yeah.
range, and it is hard with the 3 running backs. A lot of mouths to feed, split reps, but I'll buy this one.
Buy or sell Texas Tech having the best receiving core in the Big 12.
I'm trying to think of other receiving cores right now. I'd say buy.
Yeah.
I really think we can, especially Eakin being like that leader, that 5-year senior. Hudson taking that next step, and then you have guys in like Malcolm Simmons, and then Kenny Johnson. Yeah, buy.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna buy this one as well, just because of the depth. You have obviously Micah Hudson and Kenny Johnson leading the starting roles, and Coy Eakin as well. But Malcolm Simmons behind him, like you mentioned, Miller, Jalen Jones, Dante Lee Jr., Chase Campbell. So many weapons in this room that are going to contribute. I will say I guess the 2 best starters on a wide receiving core for a wide receiving group in the Big 12, I would say, is probably Arizona State with Amarian Miller and Reed Harris. Oklahoma State has a great one too with Wyatt Young. As far as depth though goes, I think this Texas Tech group does end up being the best receiving core in the Big 12, Miller.
I can see that. And especially like the season that we're projecting Micah to have, like to maybe take that next step in lead, I'd buy it too.
Buy or sell that this is Joey McGuire's best offensive line since being at Texas Tech. I think this one's pretty easy, honestly.
This is easy. This is a buy. This is a buy. We talked about it earlier. The size you have, some of the players you retained and brought in. Sheridan Wilson, be one of the best centers in the country. You got Church here. Buy. Easy buy.
Yeah, I think that's an easy buy as well. I think that's one you can put all your stock in and kind of just leave it and forget. I think this offensive line takes a massive step this year and is going to be very good. Trey White records double-digit sacks, buy or sell.
Buy.
Yeah.
Buy. I think he gets it. I think he maybe finishes 10 and a half, 11. I think he can. He kind of had he had 7 last season, but he was kind of banged up, and then the year before that he did record double-digit sacks. So, better line mates this year. Better program, and I think he reaches that mark.
Yeah, I agree. I think I agree with the kind of 10.5, 11 range. I think that's where you'll see him around. I think Trey White hits that mark this year. I think Adam Trick on the other side probably hits close to 10 as well. Like we said, David Bailey and Romello Height, you will probably never see that again as far as having almost 30 sacks combined between the both of them. That's crazy. And maybe we're wrong. Trey White and Adam Trick could have, they could combine for both 15 or something like that this year. I think, though, Trey has around 10.5, 11 sacks. I agree. I think he does reach that double-digit sack mark, though. Buy or sell, A.J. Holmes is a first-team All-American.
Easy buy. Easy buy. We kind of saw it last season. He stepped up, and whenever Sky went out, and I believe he was the preseason Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. Yeah, so I can see that, especially, like I said, with his line mates now and, paired up with Mateen. I know he really can take that next step, and I'm buying on this one too.
Yeah, I'll buy it as well. I think AJ ends up being the best defensive tackle in the whole entire country this year, actually. Last year, he came in at basically game 6 as a starter and ended up being on a few different lists in All-American. So the fact that he was already an All-American, wasn't first team last year, but this year I think he ends up being the best defensive tackle in the country. Lastly, buy or sell, Texas Tech earns a top 4 seed in the college football playoff.
I'm going to buy on this one, because we talked about it. I think our schedule is very favorable. I don't really see us slipping up. I mean, there's a couple games, week 3 Houston, you kind of look at that. You have to go to Stillwater for what could be, a pretty solid Oklahoma State team. But other than that, I think we end up going 12-0, 13-0, winning the Big 12. And with that, I think the committee has to look and be like, all right, we're not going to let like maybe 10-2 or an 11-1 SEC team take a bye over Tech. And the only other, team I could see is maybe Notre Dame knocks us to like the 5, but I think Tech, finishes in the 4 seed.
Yeah, I think, when the committee had already set the precedent last year with a Texas Tech team that had a loss,
Mm-hmm.
and we are both projecting us to run the table. As hard as running the table is, there is every year. There's going to be a game that ends up popping up on our schedule that ends up being a bigger game than we thought it was going to be,
Mm-hmm.
that maybe Tech could slip up. But preseason-wise, we are projecting us to run the table. I don't think that – well, I know for a fact the committee has never put a 2-loss team over a conference champion,
Mm-hmm.
seeding-wise. They set the precedent last year with a 1-loss champion in Texas Tech. I think BYU is going to be another very good team in this conference again. And if you have that win over them in the conference title game with a win over Houston in the regular season, a win at Oklahoma State,
Mm-hmm.
I think that will be enough to put your resume in the top 4. And like we projected in our bracket, I think that Texas Tech ends up being that 4 seed, Miller.
Yeah, a lot of buys there.
Yeah. And that'll kind of wrap up our Drive of the Game segment, buy or sell talk for Texas Tech football. But as we continue this talk for this team, I think, we can quickly go over maybe a few of the injuries that are, I guess, in play right now throughout fall camp. Fans, it's time for this week's injury report presented by the Exceptional Community Hospital. And before we hop into this week's injury report, we just want to take a moment to recognize the Exceptional Community Hospital as a proud sponsor of Campus Live and the Guns Blazin podcast. And be sure to visit their 24/7 state-of-the-art hospital and ER located at 6401 Spur 327 here in Lubbock. They accept all insurances and have short ER wait times. And once again, the Exceptional Community Hospital is a proud sponsor of this week's injury report on Campus Live. Coach McGuire had talked about in his opening press conference at Media Day, going down a list of injuries, and he did mention really the main contributor he mentioned was Julian Laventure, who burned his hand cooking dinner earlier this week. So that's why he actually missed practice.
I've been there, many times in the kitchen, burnt my hand.
So he did miss the first 2 practices. He was out there today with a helmet, his jersey on, and the pants with thigh pads in them, basically. Wasn't going through individual drills with the D-line, but he was out there practicing, doing a few different things. Julian is going to be a huge piece in this D-tackle room this year, so he was back at practice. He'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
Coach McGuire said it's just going to take a few days to recover his burn.
So say if Jason Pierre-Paul can play,
Yeah.
I think he'll be fine.
Yeah, so Julian, he was back at practice today, so that was great news. And then did notice today, though, that Aiden Johnson, a guy in the defensive line room, was wearing a boot at practice today. That was new. He had been practicing the 2 days before, so I wonder kind of what happened there. But he was not practicing today and was wearing a boot. So besides that, though, there are a few other injuries. Mikael Harrison Pilot, a pretty big special teams contributor. He won't be back until sounds like the season. There is a few other injuries as well, but that's kind of really all the main contributors, Miller.
Okay. That's good to hear. Maybe just some preventative measures in place there. So, I think you said it on the live show Wednesday, like this is probably the healthiest we've been going into a fall camp.
Yeah, and it was kind of funny yesterday when Coach McGuire talked to the media. Someone had asked about injuries, and he was like, nope, I don't want to talk about it. This is the healthiest we've ever been. I'm not going to jinx us. Because,
don't even say it.
Because I guess the last time, he had brought up being healthy, it was the most banged up he's ever had a team since he was coaching high school in 2012 at Cedar Hill. So we're gonna knock on wood and hope that we stay healthy all year. But that'll kind of move us into our paving the way to victory segment. I guess talking about what needs to happen throughout the rest of this fall camp to be seen as a win. Fans, JSI Services is a proud partner of Campus Live, and be sure to visit their website at jsiservicesllc.com to learn about their asphalt/paving services. earth and dirt works, concrete and gutter paving, crack fill, seal coating, and stripping services. And thank you to JSI Services for their proud support of the Guns Blazin podcast. I think it's literally what we just talked about. It's continuing to stay healthy.
I think it is. Some of these guys that are coming off injuries from last season, Pollock, Hammond, Joyner, just allowing them to get back into the flow of things. Just staying healthy, really.
Yeah, it's staying healthy and just prepping for week 1 against Abilene Christian. Honestly, I think it's two things that are going to continue to be a theme. There's always an injury that happens in fall camp that's pretty significant. Hoping that this year is not the case, obviously. So just continuing to stay healthy, I think, is the biggest key to victory for Texas Tech. But that'll kind of wrap up our Texas Tech football talk here today. There's been some basketball news with the portal and with some eligibility rulings. We had the Colorado ruling last week that allowed all 2022 athletes that completed their seasons this past, I guess, at the beginning of this year, they do all have another year of eligibility. That let Jamichael Stillwell, the UCF transfer, earn another year of eligibility. But not only did he win that, he won his injunction in the state of Georgia. And actually, right before this show started, Texas Tech basketball officially announced him as a part of the roster. So Jamichael Stillwell is a Red Raider. He is playing for Grant McCasland this season. A huge addition for Texas Tech this year, Miller.
That is huge. I know, especially like at the beginning of this, kind of basketball off season with all the guys that we lost and people entering the portal, and there wasn't really a whole lot of noise surrounding Tech basketball. And me and my friends were kind of like, "What? Like, are we even going to have a team? Are we going to even be able to put 5 guys out on the court?" And the way that it's kind of turned around, I don't know if that was by playing by McCaslin or just sheer luck with some of the rulings and stuff and the transfers we've been able to get, but that's huge for us.
Yeah, and obviously, Darion Williams and Donovan Atwell, they are actually eligible as well now because of that Colorado ruling. It's still up in the air, though, because the NCAA obviously is trying to get a stay for that injunction, and they're trying to overrule that. They are going to try to secure themselves to get a state injunction like Stillwell did. Darion and Atwell both had cases in the state of North Carolina. Actually, they both got dropped, though, earlier this week. There kind of some legal terms. I'm not, too entirely 100% sure. It seems like there could have been a mess up in the filing, which obviously the Texas legal group that is kind of handling all these cases. The attorney, his name's Dan Reichner, I think is his name. He's the one handling all these cases. So it sounds like what they're going to do is file the cases, especially for Darian, in the state of Texas. Donovan, hopefully as well. We want him back. But it sounds like LSU could maybe be a factor for Donovan Atwell as well. Just something to watch. Sounds like, though, D5, similarly to Stillwell, should obviously be here as a Red Raider. Just a few legal hoops, I guess, to go through, Miller.
Yeah, D5's been here all summer, see him out at the bars a couple times, He's been working out with the team, getting reps in, trying to stay fit and game ready. With Stillwell, he is like a proven conference player. It'd be hard to lose Atwell at LSU, but we talked about this a couple weeks ago about, like, he's a starter. He has to be. But where do you see him starting in this 5? We have we had good portal additions, and so, for him to come back and be able to get that year of eligibility and then go sit on the bench, like, he wants to go be a starter somewhere, especially, since, he played in the summer league, for the Bulls. So I think he really he's not looking to come back and sit on the bench. He's looking to come play some meaningful minutes and, improve his draft stock.
Yeah, and I think kind of the thing with LSU, too, is their roster, talking about a roster that has open spots, they only have like 4 spots technically filled right now. So they still have a lot of money left over. They can probably offer the biggest deal. But, Donovan and Grant, they had a great relationship. So we'll have to see kind of how that plays out. But would be a huge add. He's the best. He would return as the best shooter in all of college basketball. That's no small feat. And
he was doing it in summer league and stuff.
So would be a huge add for Texas Tech. And also, there could be another add in the front court with possibly a center that has been playing overseas in Spain. We'll have to see if that, ends up happening as well. But that's kind of, where this roster stands in a way better position than they were a couple months ago.
So much better.
If they add D5 officially back, and if they somehow get Donovan Atwell back in this mix, this is 1,000% a top 5 team preseason in college basketball.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I think you're just one big away, really, from being considered a national championship contender. So, like I said, night and day difference from what it was a couple of months ago. Don't know if that was by design or just one of those things that just worked out in our favor, but it'll be interesting to see kind of like where we go from here. We are kind of at a little standstill with all this legal stuff, but, there's a light at the end of the tunnel,
And that'll kind of wrap up our college basketball talk quickly. There will definitely be some news over the next couple weeks that make sure to stay tuned on Campus Live as we give you all the news for that. But for our last segment today, we've done a few other segments on our social media that have done really well, I guess, with engagement and, talking about this college football season. So we wanted to continue that today and reveal our top 25 bracket, Miller.
Yep. Yeah.
So are we gonna do this individually, or do you want to do this as a collective?
I think
Guns Blazin'?
Let's do it as a collective Guns Blazin'.
Okay.
We'll build this out here, and then I can go back and kind of clean it up, and then we'll post it. I'm sure y'all will find some more ways to hate on us and talk about how we don't know ball, even though we do. It's what we get paid to do.
Yeah. So I guess first, off camera we'd kind of agreed. We think that these are the 2 top teams in the country this year. We are going to have Texas at number 1, correct?
I guess, yeah. We're going we'll go Texas 1.
And then Ohio State at number 2, but you could easily flip-flop both of these. We believe these are the 2 most talented teams in the country this year. But yeah, these are our number 1 and 2, Miller.
Yeah, that
and
works.
Then I guess at number 3, I do have preseason-wise, just with what they return, Oregon.
I would agree with Oregon there. That's kind of what I was looking at.
If we want to roll with Oregon,
I'd be fine with Oregon.
Okay, so
Oregon at 3.
Oregon at number 3. I do have Miami at number 4. I don't know if that's what you.
That's what I have too.
Okay. I have Georgia at number 5. Is that what you have, or do you have Notre Dame?
I've got Notre Dame at 5.
That's fine with me. You can go Notre Dame at 5.
Notre Dame at 5. 6, I have Georgia.
Okay, yeah. So.
Who'd you have at 6?
Yeah, no, just flip-flops, so that's fine. So I guess we can kind of stop right here and talk about our top 6, because we've talked about this, really harping on the fact that we believe these are probably the 6 most likely teams that take home the national championship. We have it on our screen right here, so we're kind of looking at it if you wonder what we're looking at off camera. Texas, Ohio State, Oregon, Miami, Notre Dame, and Georgia. Miller, I guess just kind of, what went into us, I guess, this offseason, choosing these 6 teams and why you think, or I guess why the both of us think these are the best 6 teams in college football.
We kind of talked about this on the live show Wednesday. Yeah. These 6, they're really just in a tier of their own. They're proven, that you've got some of the best coaches in the country here: Kirby Smart, Marcus Freeman, Ryan Day, and also a big part is their roster. Texas has like a $50 million roster. Yeah. Ohio State returns probably the best wide receiver quarterback duo in Sayin and Smith. Dante Moore's still there at Oregon. Dan Lanning. Found his way through a tough conference. Miami, they were on that special run last season, runner-up in the national championship game, just couldn't get it done. Notre Dame returning C.J. Carter, I'm expecting big things here and good things from him. And then, Georgia's, they just kind of always been there. They were the back-to-back champs only a few years ago. So, I think really what we talked about, like, these are your best 6 teams, and I think they're just a tier above everyone else.
Yeah, I agree. I think, these 6 teams, I think our next 2 teams, though, based on quarterback play, I think could easily find themselves in this list.
Mm-hmm.
I have Indiana at number 7.
I do too.
Okay, so Josh Hoover, I think if he finds himself having a very good season, which is very possible, they return a lot. And also, speaking of 5 for 5, they just added 2 of their best players on their defense back to their roster this year. As of now, according to the Colorado ruling, Kellen Wyatt, and they added another edge rusher. I'm blanking on his name. But that was arguably the best defense in the country next to Texas Tech last year, and they just added 2 starters back. Indiana's going to be very good this year. And then next, I have Texas Tech.
I do have Tech at 8. Yep.
Okay, so obviously we've been talking about Will Hammond. If Will Hammond has a, all Big 12 first team type of year, this Texas Tech team can absolutely find themselves in that range of competing for a national championship. I think these are the top 8 teams in the country, Miller.
Yeah, I agree. I know. Going back with Indiana, you bring in Hoover. I mean, you lost your Heisman quarterback in Mendoza. First overall pick to the Raiders. His brother was supposed to be the starter, but transferred to Georgia Tech, so they went and got Josh Hoover. He kind of is that gunslinger. He is he'll put up big numbers. He does kind of have that turnover issue, but I think if anyone can really beat that out of him, it's Cignetti over there in Indiana. And with the court ruling, Indiana's defense, they're the top defense last year. You saw it in the college football playoffs, especially how well their defense performed against some of these top offenses. And then going to Tech, I think we're a better team than we were last year. It really just comes down to how Will Hammond plays, and I think he does have the opportunity to become a better quarterback than Warren was last season.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of great quarterback play, I think these next 2 you have an argument for maybe at the end of this year that they are 2 of the best quarterbacks in their conference, and that is I have number 9, Ole Miss.
Okay, I do too.
Okay,
I do too.
And then at number 10, I do have LSU. I don't know if you have them
LSU
close to there. You might not. This could be a
this
discussion
is
here.
might be where we start to.
Okay.
I actually, it's crazy. I've got Oklahoma.
Oh man.
I think for preseason.
Yeah.
I mean,
okay.
out of we've talked a lot, especially our playoff brackets and who we think's going to make it. I think OU ends up kind of falling short of that mark of making the playoffs, but going into preseason with everything, I do have them at 10. I'd be fine putting LSU. Do you have OU coming up anytime soon?
So I have Oklahoma at 12.
At 12? Okay.
Or let's see. So 10 would be LSU. I have Alabama at 11, and then I had OU at 12.
Okay.
But OU could be 10 right here.
Okay.
Yeah,
I had OU, LSU, Alabama.
So let's just go with Oklahoma right here at number 10. I don't have them in the playoff. I'm not a big believer in this team. I think that honestly, it's really John Mateer. I think you go back to last year and OU fans always talk about, it was the first 5 games of the season. If you really go look at it, John Mateer really was not playing that good.
It was defense.
It was their defense. And I think that they're going to have a tremendous defense this year. That they are going to have a top 5 defense in all of college football this year, no doubt about it. Their offense, though, I think is going to struggle. They have a insanely tough schedule as well, and in my opinion, that's why I don't have them in the playoff. Talent-wise, though, having them at number 10, they do.
It makes sense. I agree with you.
Yeah.
I didn't have them in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I mean, that's definitely a playoff team.
Yeah.
But I don't think they make the playoffs.
Yeah.
But I can see them at 10, and then 11, I had LSU.
Okay. Yeah. So we can do LSU at 11, and then I did have Bama ahead of Texas A&M.
I would agree.
So we can roll Bama there at 12.
We're about to go 5 straight.
Yeah. And
SEC.
then and then I have A&M after Bama. I don't know where you had them or not, but
I had them at 14.
Okay, who'd you have at 13?
BYU.
Okay, that's Big 12 supremacy. Put it up there.
Throw it up there. Throw it up there. Got to think about what's going to get the people going too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
No, I think Bear Bachmeier, he's coming back. He's returned. They have a solid defense, BYU. It'll be interesting. They play they host Notre Dame week 6, so I think
Yeah.
that is one of the biggest. I would argue that's probably top 5 college football matchup, especially with postseason I'm blanking on the word, like the postseason
Implications.
implications.
I guess.
Yeah. As well as I really think that could be a big game. I could see maybe that be Notre Dame's first loss of the season. I don't think that's a crazy shout, but I do have BYU at 13.
Okay, yeah. So, and that would be, I mean, and this once again, just as a preseason top 25, I think
It says way too early up there for y'all that can't read.
Yeah, BYU is gonna more than likely be a 10-win team this year. So having them at that 13 range, I don't think is a miss at all. And honestly, the way that A&M's schedule is this year, and also they lost a lot. They went to the playoffs last year and they had a very, very manageable schedule. They do return Marcel Reed and Ruben Owens.
He's overrated though.
So they lose obviously Casey Concepcion, their top wide receiver. They lost a lot on their offensive line. They lose guys on their defense. I think, having BYU ahead of them, I think you could see A&M have a, Texas 8-4 is kind of like their nickname because of how many 8-4 seasons they've had. So wouldn't surprise me to see them have a season like that. But talent-wise, obviously, they always have great recruiting classes. So having them at 14 does make sense, Miller.
I agree. That's probably where I would put them too.
15, I had USC.
Yep.
They did lose their starting center yesterday, though, which is huge.
That's a huge loss.
But, I mean, they still, I think, are going to be pretty decent in the Big Ten this year. Probably once like 8-4, 9-3.
9-3. They do have to host Oregon. That'll be an interesting game. That's kind of that old Pac-12 rivalry. But for like we said, I mean, it is way too early, and based on kind of the roster and the talent and who they retain, I would be fine putting them at 15. That's
and
who I have.
When you have one of the best quarterbacks in the country, it always makes things better. Jaden Maiava is a tremendous player. I think their defense is going to be much better this year too. And Tanu Kynes, I think, is a really underrated player in college football this year, not really being talked about at the wide receiver position. He, I think, is going to have a huge year. Does suck, though. They lost their starting center yesterday. That's massive for USC, out for the whole entire season. So that's a huge loss for USC.
Big blow, yeah.
After USC, I have Michigan.
Okay, I have Michigan, too, at 16. I was thinking – I didn't know what you had, but yeah.
Yeah, I think, Kyle Whittingham, I think if Bryce Underwood takes a massive step in his game, their schedule is very manageable if they beat OU.
Yes.
They
after OU, it's all downhill pretty much.
If they get to host OU at the Big House, I think Michigan actually wins that game. I think that's part of the reason why OU misses the playoffs is because they lose that game versus Michigan.
That's a week 3 matchup?
Week 2, I believe.
Week 2?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, even though we do have OU ahead of them in the preseason polls, based off of talent and everything like that, I think Michigan, with adding Kyle Whittingham, Bryce Underwood having, returning for his sophomore season, all the pieces, they kind of added and retained, especially on the offensive line. I think Michigan could have a better season than people think. I have Tennessee at 17. I don't know.
I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. I had them at 18.
Okay.
And then I had Houston at 17.
Okay. I have Houston. Let's see.
Do you have Houston in your top 25?
I do. Yeah, I have them at 19. So
okay.
I mean, not too far off if you wanted to put them, what is that, at 17?
17. We can put Houston at 18.
Yeah, because I do have Washington after. Let's see, I do have Washington after Tennessee. I don't know where
18.
Where did you have Washington in your top 25?
19.
At 19.
I really think they have a chance. The Big Ten is one of those conferences where you have obviously your power schools in it with Ohio State, Oregon, Indiana, but really Washington. I think they could have a sneaky good year, and they do have a pretty manageable schedule.
Yeah, and then I have Louisville at 20.
Okay.
I think, and I have them making the playoffs as the last P4 team at that 11 seed. That's just my opinion, though. I don't know if you have Louisville in your top 25 or not.
I do have them.
Okay.
I had them a little farther down on the list at 23.
Okay.
But I do really like what Louisville's doing. And I'll be fine with putting them at 20.
Yeah. Very manageable schedule,
yes.
too. And if they somehow beat Ole Miss, they could go undefeated.
They could.
Because
of their schedule.
How their schedule is. So
that's such a huge game. And that's week 1. Is that a week 1 game?
I think, yeah. It's either week 1 or week 2. Would have to – I'm going to actually search that real quick. While we do 21, I did have Iowa.
I've got Iowa.
So they kind of always are around that range. As far as they're always kind of 8-4, 9-3. Yeah, Louisville Ole Miss is week 1.
Wow.
So that's
what a game.
That's going to be a huge matchup for week 1. So Iowa 21. I have Missouri at 22.
I have them at 24.
Okay, so.
I'd be fine with putting them at 22.
Yeah, my remaining 3 is Penn State, SMU, and Kansas State. I don't know what you have in your remaining 3 or not. But
I have Penn State, SMU, Arizona.
Okay, yeah. I'm more than willing to listen on at Arizona at 25 too. So
did you have Kansas State at 25?
Yeah. So I mean, Penn State at 23.
Mm-hmm.
SMU 24, and then
should we flip a coin? Flip a coin for.
I mean, honestly, I do believe Noah Fafita is a better quarterback than Avery Johnson. So I think
that's kind of where I was at.
I think you can go Arizona.
Arizona.
Honestly. Yeah.
All right. Perfect. All right. Going back to 23 and Penn State because we didn't really.
Yeah, and I have seen Penn State left off of some preseason lists. I think they're going to be better than people expect. I have a lot of respect for Matt Campbell.
Mm-hmm.
He brings over basically all of his best players from Iowa State, including Rocco Becht. Penn State, they did lose their whole entire recruiting class, high school wise.
Mm-hmm.
They did have a pretty decent portal class, but I just respect Matt Campbell and his coaching so much, and their schedule is pretty manageable. Miller.
Yeah, my roommate and one of my best friends, he's actually a big Penn State fan, and so all throughout this season, from what I was hearing, was how. You want me to zoom in on that now that we have our top? Yeah, I'll zoom in now that we got top 25. All right. Okay. Good.
There we go.
We'll talk about the full list here in a second. But yeah, just all I heard from him was like, man, we're losing. Like every day he'd be like, we just lost another recruit. We just lost another recruit. And it is hard, especially with Franklin leaving, going to Virginia Tech. I think Virginia Tech could be a team that finishes the season top 25.
Yeah.
I think they also have a pretty easy schedule in the ACC. But Penn State, Matt Campbell, you got to give him some respect. He's gave the Red Raiders fits for years. You retain Rocco Becht, his quarterback follows him there. And then Penn State, when you think of like college football and true blue bloods, you have them. They've had iconic players in the past. Obviously one of the best helmets, I would say, in college football, and they are a great team. And so for them, it'll be interesting to see how he handles his first year, and really what is to come from the Nittany Lions.
I think for Matt Campbell, this is a guy that was having winning season after winning season, including like when Brock Purdy was there. I mean, they were in contention for the playoffs for a little bit there. Like, if you were doing that at Iowa State, he is going to succeed at Penn State. Penn State has so much more resources, so much more money for him to do it.
More brand appeal.
Exactly. And what he was doing at Iowa State, honestly, is insane for that program. Iowa State was a doormat for decades.
Mm-hmm.
And Matt Campbell turned them into a very, very respectable program. Now, obviously, at Penn State, I think Matt, he is such a good coach that even if this year they are less talented than they will be in the future, I think those less talented Penn State team is even more talented than what he would have at Iowa State. which in turn I think leads them to have a 8-4 to 9-3 season. Miller.
I think he's going to have a really good season. As a Red Raider, we kind of followed him in a way, as the conference opponent. And, I always hated going to Ames, Iowa to play. But I really think Penn State they have a good chance of going, like you said, 8-4, maybe getting one of those higher-end bowl games. So, yeah. All right, SMU, because this is a team that we both had on our overrated list. That's the team we think is overrated in the ACC. What makes you put them at 24?
I have them in the top 25 because I do have respect for Rhett Lashley. I think he is a great coach. Kevin Jennings, I think, is a good quarterback. They do have a ton of talent, but I think, though, some of that is a little overrated in some aspects. Their schedule in the ACC this year, we've talked about it. I think the ACC ends up being a little bit better than they have been in years past. You think of a Louisville this year, I think Louisville's better than them. I think Virginia Tech could be better than them. Obviously, Miami is the front runner in that conference. And in my opinion, as good as Kevin Jennings could be for this team, I think SMU has a ton of talent. That's why they're in the top 25 to begin this season. But I think they end up probably having an 8-4 season, 7-5 season, where you see them finish around that 24 range compared to people projecting them in the playoffs.
Yep, I've seen people project them in the playoffs. I believe they have the second best odds to win the ACC, which I don't get. I don't see. I do agree. Louisville does have a better team. Actually, I saw something the other day where it had SMU and Louisville kind of like the same odds. Miami's the clear favorite, the clear top dog of that conference. But I agree with you. I think they do kind of, fall off a little bit, maybe 7-5 and finish, in the 4th or 5th spot in the ACC. But, I mean, this was a playoff team a couple years ago.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and that is our top 25 right there. Obviously going to have some debate there. But honestly, I think that's a really, really solid top 25.
I think so.
I've seen some top 25s out there that are complete rage bait.
Just horrendous.
And are, including one that didn't even include Texas Tech in it. Say what you want about Texas Tech, whatever about this past offseason, but to exclude them completely from the top 25 is insane. I think, this year is going to be a tremendous season in college football. You look at this top 25, I think there are plenty of teams on this list, that kind of like how you saw last year that maybe, come out of nowhere or something and have great seasons. You look at this list, I think BYU could be one of those teams. I think even Michigan, I talked about it earlier, I think Michigan could be maybe a dark horse this year that ends up finding themselves in the playoff.
That's Tennessee for me. I had them at the 11 seed, Just looking at this list, I think it's pretty solid. Obviously we talked about it, 1 through 6, that's the clear tier 1 of college football. And, I'm just looking at it, I'm excited to see it. But going back to that company that left off Tech from the top 25, that might be the worst list I've ever seen. And they just released their NFL predictions today.
Okay.
Who do you think they had at the number 1 for the AFC? Number 1 seed in the AFC.
No. It's probably someone just outlandish. What, like the Bengals or something? I don't know.
No, they did have the Bengals in this 2 seed, I believe.
Really?
I think. But the 1 seed was the Houston Texans.
Oh, my God.
They had them going 14-3, I believe.
Which the Texans are going to have a great defense.
Yeah, they're going to have a great season. The 1
seed is crazy.
I was going to say, I think they win the South. But,
yeah.
At the 1 seed. I just don't think that company's not respectable, or I don't know if they're just doing it for pure rage bait or whatever, trying to get clicks and stuff. But, I think this is a solid list. We agreed on a lot of it.
Yeah.
If we didn't have the exact picks, they were kind of in like a
very similar.
Similar range. So, I would agree. It was a solid list. We don't have any non-Power 4 schools. I mean, Notre Dame independent, but you don't have any of like the Group of 6 schools. But if you had to pick a Group of 6 school to start off this list, who would it be?
Well, I have UNLV in the playoff. They have a ton of former Power 4 guys, including Jackson Arnold, who's going to be their starting quarterback. And not that he is anything special. But at the Group of 5 level, he could easily, go have a great year for UNLV. Dan Mullen, obviously the head coach there, and they had a good season last year. I just think in that conference, for me, it'd be UNLV, but I could easily see a Boise State, Tulane, USF. You go down the list.
Maybe even Hawaii.
Yeah.
Hawaii. A little sneaky pick there. No, I agree with you. UNLV. I mean, you have them in your playoffs. I have Boise State.
Yeah.
I could see Boise State maybe being in the 25. If we had to maybe expand this to 30, I think Boise State makes it. But I mean, it'll be good. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I think a sneaky one with USF. Obviously, Brian Hartline going there. He's the head coach now, so I think they're going to be interesting to watch. But yeah, that'll kind of wrap things up here for Guns Blazin podcast episode 30. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, talking all things Texas Tech football, our top 25 list, and of course, speaking on a little bit of the men's basketball for Texas Tech as well. And thank you so much for tuning in. We make sure to follow, like, share, and subscribe wherever you're seeing our content on Campus Live or the Guns Blazin podcast, as well as thanking all of our sponsors for their continued support for Campus Live and the Guns Blazin podcast as well. And lastly, remember that Campus Live is your one-stop news source for all things Texas Tech and Lubbock.